Hi, I'm Chef Deborah, and this is my daughter Rachel. Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
Today we are going to be making a basic brioche dough that we're going to turn into wonderful donuts and sticky buns and cinnamon rolls and lemon buns. So please join us today. We are from Rocca's Bakery in Greensboro, North Carolina. You can visit us on our Facebook or Instagram pages. We also have a website at roccasbakery.com where you can find our online store, our photo gallery of all the some of the wonderful things that we've done. We can't obviously post all the pictures of what we do, but also it allows you to see all the news things that's going on in our bakery and what we're up to. So visit our online store, and we do ship nationwide. So let's get to making brioche dough for our donuts. So today we're going to be starting with 5 cups of regular unbleached flour. It doesn't matter what brand. Don't use bread flour. We want the donuts to be tender. So if you were making the brioche dough for like bread or rolls, you would want to use a bread flour. But for the donuts, we want just regular all-purpose flour, unbleached. We have 1 stick or 8 tablespoons of unsalted butter at room temperature. We've got 1 whole egg and 2 egg yolks. We've got 2 teaspoons of instant yeast. Now in the bakery, we use 2 different kinds of yeast. You might not have this at home, but the gold yeast is for sweet breads and the red yeast is for regular breads that you know, for sandwich breads and rolls. So we do use the InstaServe gold yeast for our sweet rolls. It just helps the bread to get a lighter lift. So you can actually find it online. So a lot of stores carry the gold yeast now. We also have a teaspoon of good vanilla. We have a tablespoon of salt, and we also use about 2 tablespoons of dry milk powder. You can find this, you can use instant milk, but it is called dry milk powder. It does, again, help to enrich the dough and give it a nice tender mouthfeel. We have a 1/2 cup of granulated sugar and about 1.5 cups of whole milk heated to just like bath water temperature, about 98 degrees, no hotter than that. We don't want to kill the yeast. So those are our ingredients. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the yeast and we're going to put it into the warm milk, and we're just going to take a little whip and just combine both of them. And it is an instant yeast, and you know, everybody says, well, you don't have to proof it in a liquid, but I have found that even instant yeast does not rise. Sometimes you might get an old batch, or there might have been something wrong with the packet. So I always like to test the yeast before I put all these ingredients in and then have the yeast not work, and then you have to throw it all away and start over again. So just as a matter of precaution. So as you can see, there's little bubbles in here, and that's what you want to see. So now you know the yeast is active. So you can go ahead and we can put the eggs in here and the egg yolks, the 1 egg and the 2 egg yolks. That makes for a real rich dough, and our teaspoon of vanilla. And we're just going to go ahead and mix this up. Again, you don't have to do this, but it just helps to combine the dough a lot faster and saves time mixing it up. So we're going to add our sugar to our 5 cups of all-purpose flour. We're going to add our 1 tablespoon of salt and our dry milk powder if you're using it. You don't have to use it if you can't find it. That's not a problem, so don't worry about that. And so we do have a KitchenAid stand mixer here fitted with our dough hook attachment. And so we're just going to combine the dough real quick just to mix up all the ingredients.
Is the flour already in there?
Flour's already in there.
With the water for the yeast, if you didn't have a thermometer, how can I stick my finger in it?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it would have been warmer than that.
Yeah, it's just like bath water. I mean, like a baby bath water, warm. Okay. Just, you know, it's not hot. You wouldn't want to pull your finger out of it. You really don't want it to be any more than 100 degrees. But yeah, just slightly warm to the touch. You don't need to worry about that. So we're just going to go ahead and add our wet ingredients. And we're just going to go ahead and let it mix until it starts to combine, and then we're going to add our butter. I have cut our butter into a little more than a tablespoon chunks. We don't want to add it all at once, otherwise it will take forever to incorporate. So we're just going to help it along here real quick. We're not supposed to stick our spatula down in there, but it's on low speed, and it's one of those things I've been doing so long that it's just habit. But it's almost mixed together, and we're going to start adding our butter. And I'm going to turn the speed up just a little bit. We're going to incorporate the butter and get the dough into completely dough consistency, and then we'll be back and I'll show you exactly what it's supposed to look like. So our dough is done, and I like to finish our dough out on the counter just so that I can feel the dough. You know, yeasted doughs are living things. It's a living organism, so we want to be sure that the dough is the right texture and the right temperature and all those wonderful things. So we're just going to put a little bit of flour, not much, just a little on the board, and we're going to take our little scraper and scrape the dough out. And it will be slightly sticky. This is not a bread dough. So if you've made bread dough before, that's not what this is. It is for donuts. Or cinnamon rolls. So you can see it's a little bit sticky and it's very soft. So you can feel it, Rachel? Feel how different it is than a bread dough? Feel?
Doesn't have the same
It's not,
elasticity.
no, we haven't developed the gluten like we would to do a window pane test where we take a chunk of dough off, we roll it, and then we start separating it. And this is if you would be doing regular like loaf bread or sandwich bread. And this is called the window pane test. And you just want to slightly just keep pulling it apart to see if it's been kneaded enough. So at this point you can start seeing the window pane, but you can see it's starting to tear. You see, it's not, the gluten hasn't been fully developed yet. So if you were making bread dough for bread, this would not be ready. So you would have to put it back, you would have to knead it again for probably 4 more minutes. But we're going to finish this on the counter. And if you've never kneaded before, it's not hard. We just want to fold over the bread dough, push it out like this. And this is just going to finish giving it that silky texture that we want to see in our donuts. And also, if I feel anything in the dough that I don't like it might be too wet, maybe the flour was more hydrated than we thought, we need to add a little more flour to our bench, we go ahead and do that. But this, it's not sticking at all, so this is good to go. We measured correctly, and the flour wasn't too dry, so we don't want to really develop the gluten to the point where we go to the window pane test and pass it, because these are donuts. We want them to be tender. We don't want them to be bready. So I think that's about it. So you can tell it's a really nice, beautiful, beautiful dough. It has a nice spring to it, and it's nice and soft. So we're going to go ahead and put this in a greased container. I just spray with Pam or nonstick spray, but we like these graduated markers, and you can get these online. Some stores sell them. And so we put the dough in here, and then it shows us where it should be rising to. So we want it to rise double. So it would be 2 times this, so it would be up to the top number. So we cover the top with plastic. If you've watched our other episodes with dough that we create a little proofer box in our own oven with a 9x13 pan of hot water. Just put it on the bottom rack, put this on the top rack, and just let it proof. It will take probably a couple of hours to proof double, but just keep a watch on it. You don't want it to overproof. So
do you turn the oven on?
No, we don't turn the oven on. The hot water, the very hot tap water, is enough to keep the temperature and the humidity in the oven for the dough.
Would you have to adjust for drier climates like Colorado or Arizona?
Not usually, because
like add more water?
No, not usually, because it's just a proofing box basically we're creating. So it's an enclosed environment. If you were out, it was out on the counter, that might be different because the air might be drier, but because it's in there in the oven, it actually is a own little box so that there's no air getting into that box. So it creates its own humidity. So it's good to go. So as soon as our dough rises, we'll be back to roll and cut and fry. See you in a few minutes. So we're back with our brioche dough, and it has risen, punched it down a little bit and it started to rise again. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to dump this out on our board. We are actually going to divide this dough in half. So we're going to be making a number of different things with the dough. So we're going to cut it in half here, and we're going to put this over here to the side, and we're going to work with this. As you can see, this dough is really super soft, Rachel. So after it's risen, we don't want to mess with it too much, but we do need a good flour underneath it, and we're going to just very lightly roll it. So go ahead and put more flour down on the board.
On the board or the top?
On the board and the top, both. Underneath, you want a good flour. You don't want it to stick. You could almost press it out with your hands, actually, because it's really a soft dough. Go ahead, go forward. We want it to be about a ½ inch thick. We don't want it to be thin. Otherwise, we'll have skinny donuts. We don't want skinny donuts. That's good right there.
You mean donuts don't make us skinny?
Donuts don't make us skinny. Well, my donuts do. We bless all the calories out.
Right.
So we just want to be sure that it's even. So again, if you're doing the whole recipe, it would make probably a dozen donuts. And this is a good size cutter. So you can use a cutter like this. You can get this online. This is an Ateco. I find that we go through a lot of these, a lot. We just wear them out and they break. But you can get these online. They're really cheap. They're like $5. They're not expensive at all. Or you could use a biscuit cutter or a round cutter, and you can use a smaller cutter, you know, or a tip off of an icing tip, a decorating tip, and cut the hole out. But we're going to be doing solids because we're going to be doing some filled donuts as well. So we're going to be doing holy donuts and solid donuts. So let's do a couple of each. We'll go right to the edge. We're just going to press down even like that. And then, press down hard. Make sure it goes all the way through. There we go. And you might want to stick it in the flour. There we go. Tap it off. Yeah, the hole came out. And that's fine. We want the hole.
The holy hole.
As close as we can to eat the other donuts, we don't have a lot of waste.
That'd be a good business name for donuts, holy holes.
Holy holes. Yeah, if you're just doing the holes. And then we'll do the rest as solid. And we have some baking sheets that are already had a parchment paper, and for this donut, for this brioche dough, you do need parchment paper, and heavily spray it, not with Pam, but with Baker's Joy or some type of spray that has flour in it, and spray it heavy because it will stick and you won't be able to get them up. So we're just going to separate them and just lay them on the sheet pan. You want to give them a good couple of inches apart because they will almost double in size. So you do not want to crowd them. And so we don't want to knead, let me show you how to do this. We're just going to gently just push it back together. Because this dough is so soft, we can actually re-roll this a second time. If it was any harder than that, we wouldn't be able to do that. It would make the donuts too soft, but because there is a lot of butter and I added some extra egg yolk in it, we'll be able to do that. But you'll be able to tell the difference in this dough. The gluten has been activated a little because we've rolled it. Okay. You'll see there's a little bit more resistance to it. Can you feel it? Yeah. Okay, that's good right there, and you can just pat the rest out. Yeah. And we'll do a couple more of the solids. Okay. So we're going to do some filled donuts today. We're going to be doing a jelly donut. We're also going to be doing pastry cream filled. We're going to be doing chocolate and vanilla. And so just fun stuff, so you can see all the different types of fillings that you can make. You can find our basic vanilla pastry cream recipe on our Series 1 show on our website. Look under Southern Favorites, where we have our blueberry biscuits and our banana pudding. You'll find our vanilla pastry cream recipe there. So we've got our donuts cut out, and remember, 9 by 13 pan with hot tap water. Oven is off. We're going to go ahead and proof these for about 20-25 minutes till they're almost doubled in size. We don't want these to overproof, otherwise they'll fall when you try to fry them and you'll get a flat donut. And so we'll be back in just a couple of minutes when they get done raising, and we'll fry these up and glaze them for you. We'll see you shortly. So we're back with our raised donuts, and they've raised beautifully. So we've got our temperature of our oil at 360 degrees. We want to try and maintain it. We always use a thermometer, because if it drops below 350, the donuts will absorb too much oil and they'll become kind of greasy and more dense. You want them to be nice and light and fluffy. So we want to maintain the oil at about 360, so adjust the up and down temperature of your stove top as needed. So we're going to go ahead and fry these up, and we'll get back and we'll start the glazing after they cool off just a little bit. So we're back. Our donuts have been fried. As you can see, they're fried to a nice golden brown. And just as a reminder that when you make donuts like this from scratch, especially with a brioche dough, which is heavy on the eggs and the butter, it's not going to be like your donut shop donut or Krispy Kreme if you live in the South, or even Dunkin' Donuts. Those companies use mixes and water, and so the product is completely different. So expect your donuts to look maybe a little craggy around the edges. They're not going to necessarily be perfect. Now this dough was a little overproofed doing this shoot. The dough was overproofed a little bit, and so you're going to get more of a caramelization on the outside of the donut, and the inside might not be as light as what you would expect it to be. But if you be careful, and when you're watching the dough, make sure it doesn't over double when it's raising the first time. You should be good to go. But these are the things that happen when you make donuts from scratch at home, especially when you're making a donut from a brioche dough, a live dough, and not a mix. Mixes, you can't go wrong with them unless you burn them when you fry them. We're going to fill one of our donuts with vanilla pastry cream, and we're going to put chocolate icing on it and basically turn it into a Boston cream donut. If you ever had Boston cream pie, this is kind of a donut take on that, and we used to sell a lot of those at the bakery store. So our vanilla pastry cream recipe, as a reminder, is on our Southern Sweets episode in Series 1, which you can find on YouTube at Chef Deborah /Rocca's Bakery, or on our website at roccasbakery.com. And to turn it into chocolate pastry cream, you just add 4 ounces of chopped, unsweetened good chocolate into the warm pastry cream and let it melt. And very easy to make, so you can find that recipe, and that's on that episode in Season 1. So let's go ahead and start dipping, Rachel. So we want to dip until it actually comes almost to the bottom of the donut, but we're putting it top side down in the glaze and then lifting it up. We'll put these over here and then flipping it back over. There we go. And then we're just going to put it on a baking sheet that has a rack on it so that it's not sitting in the glaze. Otherwise, the bottom of the donut can get soggy. For all the red, white, and blue for Veterans Day or Memorial Day, and we have all different kinds of sprinkles. You can get those at any store, especially during the different holidays. So you can make your donuts really festive for your family, and it's fun. The kids love to see the bright colors, especially in Halloween, and just a fun thing to do for your family and friends. And you can have a donut making party too, and have some of your neighbors over, invite their kids, and everybody has one job that they have to do, or one contribution to the donut party, and the grown-ups are there. So it can just be a fun thing to do. Also about this dough, quick before I forget, if you make the dough one day ahead of time, and just pat it out into a rectangle, wrap it in plastic wrap, and put it on a small sheet pan or in a bowl. You can stick it in the refrigerator overnight or up to 2 days and roll it out the next day, so that you can have fresh donuts in the morning, but you don't have to mess with making the dough. So Friday afternoon, make the dough, stick it in the refrigerator. Saturday morning, roll it out to 1/2 inch thick, cut it and proof them. It'll take longer because the dough's chilled, and the texture of the dough will be a little bit different because it's been chilled, but they will raise beautifully, and so it's a nice, easy recipe to do ahead of time as well. You can also freeze the dough. Once the donuts are cut in either solid rounds or holes, you can put those on a sheet pan, cover them with plastic, and freeze them. And then you can take them off the sheet pan and put them in a plastic bag and mark and date so you know when you made them. And they'll keep up to a couple of weeks in the freezer. So you can do them ahead of time. And if you just want to, make some donuts one Saturday morning, just bring them out. And it'll take obviously a lot longer to proof and thaw, but put them in your little proofer oven, that you turn your proofer box from your oven that you turn into, and you have donuts. So just as a side note, you can freeze these ahead of time as well. So we're going to make a Boston cream. So we have a tip here. It's called a Bismarck tip. We have these in the bakery, and this is what we use to fill our donuts with. You don't have to have one, but you do need something stiff to push into the donut. So if you have a round tip, something like that, you do need, or you can take a knife and cut a little, twist the knife a little bit in there. You can fill it that way, but we just stab it, usually in a couple places, and just squeeze the filling in. And sometimes it squeezes out. You want to go ahead and dip that one in the chocolate, honey? We used to have, Saturdays, I would only make bombolonis on Saturday, which is an Italian donut filled with our Italian vanilla buttercream. And we would sell out usually within a couple of hours. We'd make, I don't know how many trays of them every Saturday. And I'd only do them on Saturdays. And I deliberately had to overfill them, and I'm going to show you how, like this. All of my customers wanted to see the bombolonis coming out looking like this, because that meant there was a lot of vanilla pastry cream goodness inside of that. So they were always picking out that particular one. So you go ahead and glaze that with the vanilla glaze. As you can see, because the dough was overproofed, it got a little bit craggy. And that's what happens. We just, we show our mistakes as well as our successes. This wasn't a mistake, but it was just overproofed. In any event, those are our donuts. You can powder these roll these in granulated sugar. If you want to, you can fill these with jelly and roll them in sugar, or dust them with powdered sugar. Any combination. It's your donuts, it's your creation, it's your color palette, and it's a holiday event. So this is Chef Deborah and Rachel thanking you for joining us today for our brioche donuts episode. Yes. Good. Rachel's the donut queen. Is it good? Mm-hmm. Really good? Let me see. Oh yeah, it looks nice and fluffy inside, huh? So this is Chef Deborah and Rachel signing off for this episode. Bon appetit.